the Terran Imperial Monarchy's Weapon System Training Course. This course is brought to you by the Colonial Naval Academy, located on Cav. I'm Captain Jim Jericho of the CN and will be your instructor for today. Our lesson today will be on the Gauss system. The Gauss system is a generic term that refers to devices that utilize magnetism to move objects that are ferromagnetic. We will be exploring the Gauss system and how it functions and what it was initially used for in its early days and see how it's evolved into today's era. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we should first go far back into the past and get to know the man from which the system is named after. The name Gauss comes from a German mathematician and physicist, Johann Carl Friedrich Gauss. Gauss was born in 1777, 30th of April, and passed away 1855, 23rd of February. And during his long life, he made numerous and profound contributions to the field of algebra, astronomy, geodesic surveys, and of course, major strides in the understanding of magnetism. In 1831, Gauss put his mind together with a physicist professor named Wilhelm Weber, and led the way to new knowledge and understanding in the field of magnetism. This new understanding, this new development in science paved the way for the modern way of life. Now, since Gauss had led the way into the field of magnetism, basically becoming the forefather in this area, the name Gauss was attributed to the devices that utilize magnetic effect in magnetic accelerator cannons. That and calling things of the like Gauss systems a lot simpler and a hell of a lot easier than saying magnetic accelerator and things of the such. The Gauss system is a kind of mass driver that will consist of one or more coils of a conductive material that is used to produce an electromagnetic field that pulls a ferromagnetic object through conduit in a linear motion, of course at high velocity. In other words, it's a device that is made to pull at objects that magnets would typically stick to. In the case of a mass driver, one would use a long barrel or tube and have a series of coils wound around the outside of said tube or barrel. The coils then would energize and de-energize at a precisely timed sequence that would pull the ferromagnetic object through the tube at high velocity because the object is drawn by the magnetic force being applied. Should the timing be either slow or the coils fail to de-energize, that's turning off for you non-electrical minded folks, then the object would either exit the tube at a much reduced velocity or stop entirely at the energized coils. Now that we have that overly simplified explanation now out of the way, let's get into the early history of the practical implementation of this tech and see how it evolved. In 1845, a Norwegian scientist by the name of Christian Birkeland began work on the first electromagnetic gun and in 1904 patented the design. But it wouldn't be until 1933 when a Texan inventor in the USA by the name of Virgil Rigsby invented a coil gun that was meant to be used like a stationary machine gun placement. But sadly, it was never put into production. Since that time, the Gauss system was relegated to a hobbyist toy, creating small, simple coil guns for shooting pop cans with the kids. a curiosity and really nothing more. It wouldn't be until the founding of DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency of the USA in 1958, that the Gauss system would be looked at with any real seriousness for military application. Even though testing of the tech was well underway prior to the 1969 invasion, favor for the Gauss system as a practical weapons platform fell away after the invasion, as railguns proved to be more of an effective platform all around. It wouldn't be until the rebuilding of the Fractured Soul system that the Gauss system received a second chance to be of practical use, but this time for the private sector. As Terrans were remaking roads, buildings, and society in general, several shipping companies would see the Gauss system as an excellent way for quickly moving freight in the weightlessness of space. In this, the system found a use beyond the means of executing critters on a farmstead, and actually helped humanity and its clients put the pieces back together, and at a greater pace than what was initially estimated. Learning that freight containers that were to be transported at relatively short distances could be better moved on their own via electromagnetic rings from point to point was better in saving time, fuel, and creds. After the Reconstruction era had come to a close and Terrans took to the stars again, but with renewed vigor, the Gauss system would again be looked at for military application, but this time by the hobbyists that toyed with them. In the early 1990s, a handful of American Legion vets and hobbyists came together and formed a small company on the City of Redemption's Hope on Luna. The company is called ARC Incorporated, and they developed the first practical coil gun sidearm, strong enough to penetrate the flesh of an enemy and still have enough power to fire 5 more rods to finish off his buddies. The A016X became a favorite for those that liked the silent and rugged piece. Possessing few moving parts, it was not prone to jamming or misfiring, and it soon became clear that this tech could be further advanced beyond a simple handgun. It wouldn't be long until the A42 quote-unquote Gauss rifle was developed and became a raging success. With its many improvements to rod capacity or its convertibility to using ball bearings, quicker charge capacity, and more compact and effective battery systems, the Gauss rifle became a must for those that wanted to reach out and touch someone and wanted to remain concealed. Snipers took to the tech, modifying their rifles with longer barrels and more coils for further reach, while those of the more anti-armor mindset took to overcharging their rifles to get more kinetic punch or penetrating power at the cost of their power reserves. It was at this point that DARPA came back to the drawing boards and finally got serious. By 1999, DARPA had developed its first Mobile Artillery Rail Cannon, or MARC for short. Given the designation Mark 120, it proved itself to be a very capable piece of tech, capable of being fitted on most mobile platforms able to carry its tonnage. The Mark 120 proved itself in many ground operations involving the use of long-range bombardment where orbital operations were deemed too risky. The Mark 120 would, over time, gain numerous upgrades, making it more accurate, quieter, and harder to detect with electrical dampening technologies. As it stands, the Mark 120, or one of its many cousins made from competing companies, had shaped the battlefield artillery scene in a very real way that none could truly deny. It wasn't long ago that an artillery team out of Apple Crate made a splash when they took part in the Battle of Gauss that saw the routing of an enemy force known as the Coalition. Their cannons, some that were of the original DARPA Mark 120 design, were employed in that battlefield and, once again, proved its ability to deliver death at extreme range. More on that Battle of Gauss can be studied in a very descriptive report under the file name Treads of Vengeance. The Gauss system, or electromagnetic driver as the eggheads like to call it, has come a long ways and may still have a long ways to go before this piece of tech peaks out. From its humble beginnings of being just mathematical equations, to a curiosity and toy, to a means of moving goods and rebuilding a broken society, to defending the Terran way of life, Johann Carl Friedrich Gauss couldn't have imagined the impact his research would have on the wider world nearly 200 years later. Well, that's all we have for now. For further reading into Gauss and his works or technologies that came as a result of his research can be found at Terra_Wikipedia on the GNet. Thank you for your time, and you are dismissed.